Today's episode is brought to you by La Bandera BTX, birria de res estilo Tijuana in Brownsville, Texas. Bring your favorite adult beverages to add to their delicious agua frescas, michelada mix, and other mocktails while enjoying the best quesabirria dishes in the Rio Grande Valley. Restaurant located on South Padre Island Highway and a food truck on West Elizabeth Street. Follow their social media at La Bandera BTX.
Welcome back to Paranormal 956. My name is David, and as always, I am here with Bianca.
Hi, guys.
What are we talking about today, Bianca?
You can take that shit off. We already did an update episode.
Yeah,
so
we did.
We're done with that.
Why is it like that?
I don't know.
There we go.
Anyways.
I don't know what was going on there. We got ghosts. What was that?
What the fuck was that? I really don't know. Anyways, we already did an update episode.
So what are we talking about today?
I have no idea. I don't know.
We're talking about the Great Depression.
There's more to it.
So we're a little bit out of sorts today.
Yeah, we don't know what the fuck.
We're trying our best.
Yeah. If you got suggestions, like I said, just throw them out there.
We have had some malfunctions and some miscues today, but we're back on track.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about the Great Depression. There is a saying that those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are going to talk a little bit about the past to make sure we don't forget it. And there's something going to be relevant at the end. And before we get into the Great Depression, which was in the 1920s.
Is that around your time?
No, before. Or the Great Depression was in the 1930s, I'm sorry. We're going to talk about...
Is that about your time?
No. We're going to talk about the 1920s.
Okay.
So my parents were born in the 1950s. I was born in the 1970s. My grandparents were born in the 1920s. So we're going all the way back to my grandparents.
Okay.
They were little kids during this. But during the 20s, setting this up to what led to the Great Depression, right?
Okay.
So in the 1920s, jazz starts to be a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big names like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, etc. Think about it like Tupac and Biggie at the time, right?
Okay, valid.
Where like rap is like a new thing, and these are the cool guys.
Okay,
in the
okay.
rap, right? But
Understood. Yeah.
There was also this kind of movement called the flappers. These girls.
They're like strippers?
No.
No.
So think about, like in the 60s, they had the hippies. They were like a certain kind of girl, right? And there's like the preppies, and there's like all these different things.
So right now would be like the Hello Kitty girl?
I guess so. I don't know. Today, I don't know. I wear a black shirt almost every day. I don't know.
Okay.
It. But these girls were very much into fashion. They were cutting their hair short for the first time. They were wearing slacks, which was like unheard of at the time. There were women that were having sex before they were getting married.
Right.
They were wearing shorter skirts. They were wanting to get jobs. They were holding off getting married. Like women's liberation was starting, right?
Right.
They were very into fashion, like I said. At the same time as these kind of liberal things are moving forward, crime starts to pick up. Prohibition is a thing. They outlaw alcohol. And so the mob starts to become a thing a little bit bigger. They start making these things called speakeasies, which they looked like a normal business in the front, but then there was like a hidden room where there's a bar.
Okay.
Right? And so things started to...
So that's where it started?
Yeah, in the 1920s. And so now we're talking about moonshine and
the crazy shit.
Running moonshine and all this stuff, right? Immigration also starts kicking up in the 1920s, right? So,
like right now?
Well, that's kind of why we're talking about this, right? Because we're on our way. Remember we talked about the fourth turning in an episode a few back?
Yes.
How things go in cycles.
Yes.
Well, this is kind of the
Upbringing.
precursor to the upcoming cycle, right?
And I really thought 2025 was going to be my year.
So
who would have thought?
Yeah. So we're going to get into this, right? So immigration picks up. At the time, it's people from Italy and Russia are starting to move over here.
Okay.
A lot more, right? Some of them are getting into organized crime, right? Because of the Italian mafia, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a big thing. As far as the economy in the 1920s, mass production starts to be a big thing.
Right.
They're making cars. There's these factories, right? Cars are affordable for most of the people in the United States. And so people are starting to move around a lot more, right? The radio is a big deal. People are starting to spread ideas. People are getting radios and keeping up to date with current events and learning about things, right?
Right.
And then aviation, when the airlines start taking people places. And so for the first time, you're able to travel across the country into other countries at the time in a way that you could never do before. So people's eyes and minds are starting to open, right? And they're starting to see the world as accessible and being able to do things for the first time. People that had never been out of their own city are now traveling, going to new states and new countries and things, right? And so it was a big deal, right? This was like what do you call it? Like a quantum leap forward for most of the people, right? So remember I said that the Russians were coming over here? So the Russians were communists, right? And so communists are today we would call them socialists, right?
Okay.
There was a big fear because the United States was kind of scared of losing their freedoms. And so communism was looked at as like the big enemy in the room. And so they started taking people to court, accusing them of being communists and all this stuff, right?
That's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's true, right?
Okay.
So women's suffrage started happening. The very early days of the civil rights movement with the blacks starting to write literature, right? With Du Bois and all these people that were writing in the Harlem Renaissance, they call it, right?
Okay.
The Scopes trial was about Christianity versus evolution. Went to the trial, right? And so things are starting to become a little bit more secular. People are starting to trust science. Like a lot of things are happening, right?
They started questioning more.
Yeah. So their brains are kind of moving, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, the climate is starting to rumble. There's a flood on the Mississippi River that displaces hundreds of thousands of people.
Okay.
Right? At this time, there are quite a few people that are super rich. Right? So there's a guy named Rockefeller. In New York City, there's a Rockefeller building where like they call it 30 Rock, where NBC films Saturday Night Live and all these things, right?
Okay.
Rockefeller Center, right? It's where they put that big tree in New York City, right? It's named after this guy. He was the very first billionaire. There has never been a billionaire before, but he was the first one.
He was the first one. Okay.
Into oil and into real estate. Okay.
Oh, okay.
There was a guy named DuPont. You heard of the DuPont company? They're into chemicals, right? And they're making these chemicals and fertilizers and plastics and all this stuff, right? It's also really, really rich guy.
Right.
JP Morgan. I don't know if you've ever heard of JP Morgan Financing. It's an investment group and a bank. He was into financing and stock market. Very rich millionaire person back then.
Okay.
And then your favorite, Henry Ford, was around.
Oh my fucking God.
So Bianca hates Fords.
I don't hate them.
We worked on a lot of Fords and you have a bad taste in your mouth from Fords.
From Fords, yep.
Right?
Yep.
So now that's the 1920s.
And they're still fucking up in the fucking...
They call the Roaring Twenties, right? Mm-hmm. And so these are the rich people of the time. Mm-hmm. Henry Ford is into moving objects, right? Cars, right? Rockefeller is into real estate.
Dodge kick in?
Dodge is later. People that worked for Ford eventually make Dodge. JP Morgan is in the financing, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. So now we move into the 1930s. And I don't remember the date exactly, but there's a day called Black Tuesday where the stock market crashes. This is the beginning.
It's not Black Friday?
It's not Black Friday. It's another Black Tuesday, right? And so the stock market falls for the first time. And so it crashes really bad. Like it had never really done that before.
But like why, what, when? I don't get it.
So at the time, I don't know if you are familiar with what they call bubbles. So like, think about it this way.
I've seen bubbles.
Like in the stock market, right?
Oh, no.
So let's say like, name some, okay. So Stanley Cups are like a big thing right now, right?
Okay.
Right. So people start buying them and selling them and buying them and selling them. And so you buy one, it's $20 and then you resell it
for like $40-$60. Yeah.
Right. And then that person resells it for $80, right? And then they try to sell it for $160.
It's like StockX then.
Right. And so think about it this way, right? So if you bought one for $20, you feel good about that, right?
Yeah, it's a good buy.
And then if I buy it for $40,
I got my money and a little profit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I bought it for $40, and then would you buy it back from me for $80?
If I wanted that bad.
Okay. And then let's say,
depending on the model and stuff, right?
So let's say somebody else bought it for $80, right? And now would you buy it for $160?
Oh shit. Okay.
Right.
Okay, I see your point. Yeah.
And then if you're kind of maybe some of them maybe
180.
Let's go again.
Yeah.
$300. Would you buy a Stanley Cup for $300?
When I got it for 20 at first, that's fucked
right.
up.
So this is what happens with these bubbles, right? I don't know what's happening.
What the fuck?
For some reason, my light just got really bright. But think about this. So now, let's start saying they're just starting to sell Stanley Cups everywhere now for $300, right? And everybody's buying them, and they're eventually they're like, you know what, this fucking isn't worth $300, right? And then people are like, I'm not going to buy them anymore. That bubble pops, and then the value just goes back down to 20. That's how it works. Okay.
Got it.
So think about it like Tesla or X or whatever. There are stocks, Facebook, right? People are buying the stocks back and forth, right? And they keep buying them and like, oh, this is a good company.
And then they're like, nah.
And eventually they're like,
let's stop it there.
It's not really worth this much. And the bubble pops. Okay. And so these bubbles in the finance world have happened several times. In the most recent one, it was the housing market. People were buying houses and buying houses and buying houses. And then eventually they were like, this house isn't worth $500,000. And that bubble popped. And then the houses their values went down really, really, really bad, right? Well, that happened back in the 1930s. At the same time, because everything was kind of wild and free in the 20s, people had a lot of credit card debt.
They had credit cards back then?
Oh, yeah. They had credit card debt. They also had a lot of student loans.
They had schools back then?
They had all this stuff. Right, that's kind of similar.
You're telling me the people that created Ford went to school.
Well, yeah, and people. I mean, so just
they went to school,
just to
and
put
created Ford.
Just to tell you, just so you can understand a little bit of how history works, a little bit. So you've heard of Oxford University? It's in London. When Oxford was around, like when it started, the Mayan and Aztecs were still here.
You're lying.
No, it's 100% true.
That's crazy.
So a lot of the things that were happening.
But I bet Ford didn't go to that school.
I don't know what school Ford went to. I don't know anything.
Did he even graduate?
I don't know. Don't know. Your vitriol towards Ford is a little too much, right? I'm sure some of our listeners have Fords.
Get a Dodge. We're not sponsored, though.
So another thing that was happening at this time, right? We're talked about this credit crisis with people, with student loans, etc. They also started to have World War I was like in 1914. And so now these countries were trading with each other. Now with the war, all of these trade... what do you call them? Treaties and things.
Okay.
all started kind of crumbling. So now countries aren't trusting each other and they're starting to put tariffs on each other, right? And things are starting to not go so well, right? In addition to that, the labor unions start getting a bad name and the government starts making laws that make the labor unions weaker, right? And so then also the rates of people that are joining the labor unions are going down, right? At the same time, there was a lot of these speculators. And so, for example, today, we don't price gas and oil by how much people are buying and how much there is. I don't know if you know that, but people have a job where they're like, I think, they're called speculators, that gas should be this much or oil should be this much. I think that's going to go up. I think it's going to go down.
So we're just speculating? We
just speculate, right? And so that's why...
Just speculate throughout the process of life?
With a price of gas. So we actually don't use...
So who the fuck is speculated for it to be like over $3?
Yeah.
Because at this point, it's fucking stupid.
Well, people are doing that, right?
I'm done. That's fucked up. Would you speculate that?
I wouldn't, but people do. When it's your money going into your pocket, you're going to make it more expensive, right? That's the problem with speculators. And so this was happening in the 1930s, and it's happening now, right? So recently, there was a new company that came out from China called DeepSeek. Angie was talking about this a little bit earlier.
Okay.
So
Angie as in his wife.
Yeah. So you know that there's AI all over the place right now, right? Like, so Google has their own AI, Facebook has their own AI. There's AI all over the place.
Yes.
And in each one of those instances, the companies that developed the artificial intelligence spent like $1 billion or multiple billions of dollars to get these AIs going. And they use this special chip that's super powerful in order to run these programs, right? Well, China comes out and they say, we didn't use that fancy chip.
We had TikTok.
We used this little chip and we didn't spend $1 billion. We spent a couple or a few $1 million and we did it super quick.
Okay.
And so last week,
used to do that?
last week, the stock plummeted because China did that.
Dumb.
Right? So in other words, a bubble pops. Right? Yeah. Because the company that makes that super expensive chip was valued at over or around $1 trillion.
Shit.
And they lost like 20% of their value in one day.
In one day?
In one day.
That's crazy.
And so the stock market's getting ready to fall, right? And so do you remember?
It was falling.
And so do you remember that saying that I said at the beginning? That those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, right?
Okay.
So one of the things that I think makes it where we get along, how our brains kind of work, is we're very logical people, right? And so if
Isn't everybody supposed to be like that?
They're supposed to be, but they're not, right? They're not, right?
Right.
They're not. So...
And it's just not because we're Aries.
But this is the thing, right? So those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, right? Do you know what happened to those rich people that I mentioned earlier in the 1920s? What happened to them in the 1940s?
What kind of test is this?
They had twice as much money. Because this is what happens in the 1930s when everything crashes.
Yes.
And people are starving and they're out of business and they're bankrupt. These rich guys that I mentioned before are able to come in and just start buying things dirt cheap. Right?
Right.
So when I say those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, the logical conclusion to that, the next extension of that, is that those who understand the past can pull the levers of the past to benefit in the future.
So we got to buy the China AI thingy.
So this is what's happening right now. There is not an economist on the planet that thinks that President Trump's tariffs are a good idea.
Right.
Because it's going to increase the price for everybody.
Yep.
He knows that.
Yep.
He wants that.
Yes.
Because it's going to make companies and people go bankrupt.
Yes.
So that him and his friends, remember all those billionaires that I talked about before? Millionaires and billionaires? They're all his friends. They're all just waiting to crash the economy.
Just take whatever
and pick up all of the mess. And so that's what's in store for us because the labor markets are going down.
And this is not a prediction. It's just a logical explanation, guys.
Well, this is the fourth turning that we talked about before. And so none of the things, people on the liberals in the country are looking at all of this and super upset and they're saying how dumb Trump is because how can he not know? How can he not know? But the joke is on them because he does know. And he's purposely pulling the levers of history to make them all more money. The thing that people don't really look at, so we know about SpaceX, right? SpaceX is here in Brownsville. And so we see his rockets and we blah, 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 right? But did you know that the person who owns Virgin Mobile also has a rocket?
No.
Did you know that the guy who owns Amazon has a rocket?
No.
Did you know?
How the fuck do you know who the fuck owns a rocket? That's my question.
Because they were on the news, because both rockets have already been into space. So the Virgin Mobile guy got in his own rocket and he went into space.
So that's it. We're just sending people randomly. You own a rocket, you can go in.
Jeff Bezos, the guy who owns Amazon, has built a rocket, gotten into a rocket, his own rocket, and has gone into space.
So that's what we're doing now.
But figure, we're talking logic, right? We're talking logic.
Logically, yes, I get it.
Elon Musk has rockets.
Yes, he does.
He has not been in his own rocket. Elon Musk has not gone to space.
But he started all this shit.
But Jeff Bezos has gone to space.
Yeah.
And I think his name's Branson has gone to space in their own rockets.
Branson, that's a good name.
But why do you think Elon Musk has not been in his own rocket and gone to space? Why do you think? What is the logical reason?
He's not dumb like that, but I don't think he would expose himself like that to any given
But what
situation.
would make him dumb? Okay, I'm just going to tell you. These other guys have gone to space in their own rockets.
Yes.
The reason Elon doesn't go and hasn't gone.
Has he told you?
Is because it's the logical thing.
Okay.
It's the logical thing. What happened to his last rocket that went up like 2 weeks ago? What happened to that rocket?
Didn't it just like blew up?
It blew up.
Yeah.
How many rockets have gone up and blown up? Has one of them gone up and been successful since we've been here? They don't fly. They blow up. Yeah, we've had them all blow up. They blow up. So he's not getting in these dumb rockets because they're bombs. These other guys are making real rockets. They go into space and they fly around the world and they come back. Right?
Yeah.
Elon Musk doesn't do that because he is just making more money. When the last rocket a couple of weeks ago exploded,
that's true.
Exploded, the company, they're all outside watching, are cheering that it failed. They're cheering that it failed because it just means the government's going to give them more money to do it again and again and again and again. That's why he's the richest man in the world, because he's just wasting Americans' money and they're just giving him money by the truckloads. but he's never going to get in his own rocket, and we're never going to go to Mars. Get this. You know how we're all talking about going to Mars? Get this. Do you know how long it would take us to get to Mars?
Shut up.
It would take us the exact same time as the longest person who has ever been in space. And then they have to land, and then they have to build a society, and then they have to come back. It's not going to happen. Buckle up.
Where? Because we don't even got a spaceship.
Buckle up.
We don't even got a spaceship to start out.
Things are going to get interesting.
We don't even have a rocket. We don't get. So we're just going to be straight up depressed. That's it. That's what you're saying.
The economy is. I'm happy.
As it is, I'm happy.
I mean, I see what's happening. I'm not. The economy is not going to do well.
Yeah, they're not. We're fucked, guys. It's so bad.
At least TikTok's back. But you know the funny...
But I fucking deleted it, so it's not even fucking
so
a thing.
It's back for me.
Anyways.
But you know, we were talking about these people, like Ford is making these cars, Elon's making Teslas. Like that. All of these things are all happening.
I mean, even the Teslas are blowing up.
Yeah. They
so,
but these rich people, they have their counterparts today. Mm-hmm. You know, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, the guy from TikTok, Trump. These are the same avatars from the 1920s and the 1930s. This is happening.
Same.
Again, history is repeating itself. That's it for today. I don't mean to end it on such a depressing note, right?
Even the last one was kind of fucking depressing. Anyways, it's been a few depressing episodes.
Yeah, so we're in a good place.
Anyways, that's been my sound for the whole fucking month of January.
Good
honestly.
news, though, you have a new soundboard.
I do.
So it's not all bad news.
Look at that, guys.
We'll
be upgrading the sounds and stuff, so
we're going to be giving her her own unique sounds
to
help her express herself
a little bit better.
And we will see you all next week. Follow us on all of our socials, YouTube, including TikTok,
Facebook, TikTok.
And we're putting the video on YouTube.
Yeah, we're putting the video on YouTube.
So we will talk to you all soon.
Bye, guys.